Hi, my name is Abraham and I'm 16 years old. You might think that my name is quite old-fashioned, and there's a reason for that. I'm Amish. I was born in a village in Pennsylvania to a loving mom named Hannah and a strict father named Isaac. I have 10 other siblings, and even though we lived a simple lifestyle, we were quite happy. Before I continue my story, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to make sure that you don't miss out on any more exciting stories, make sure you hit that notification bell. We don't have electricity, running water, or the internet. It was strictly prohibited for us to ride in cars, trains, and buses, so I had no idea what that was like. We couldn't have cameras, and photos were also forbidden, so we didn't even have a family portrait. But we still had fun. After I finished my chores, I usually met up with the other guys my age and we played baseball. This was our favorite sport, and we were really good at it. This was how it went every single day, and I was happy. Until my closest friend, Joseph, returned from a trip to the city. I had never left our village, and I had no idea what it was like out there. I had only heard stories that the people who lived outside were vile sinners, and that we were special and set apart. Abraham, the city is fascinating. There were lights everywhere, even at midnight, and they don't even use kerosene lamps. It's called electricity. There are huge stores where they sell all kinds of food, supermarkets. There were so many foods there I hadn't tried before. Here, I brought some back for you. They're called Cheetos, he said while handing me a bag. I opened it and tried one. Ew, I said. Well, never mind. There must be other snacks you'll enjoy. Apart from what I told you, there's so much more. I think you should go one day to experience it all, he continued. I knew I had an aunt who moved away from the village and lived in the city. My parents had told me that if I ever wanted to experience life outside, they'd arrange for me to stay with her for a while, and that they'd allow me to make my own decision about how and where I wanted to live when I became an adult. That night, I decided to have the conversation with my parents. Mother, Father, I think it's time, I said. Time for what? My mom answered. I want to experience life in the city. Can I go stay with my aunt? I asked. Certainly not, my father replied. But you said I could go when I was ready. Why have you changed your mind? I asked. I'll speak to your mother and we'll let you know our decision tomorrow. Now, go to bed. You have to wake up early, he said. I walked away sadly, got changed for bed, and went to sleep. The next day, my parents seemed to have forgotten our deal. I went up to them to ask again. Have you decided yet? Can I go stay with my aunt for a while? We decided to let you stay there during the week, but you have to come home on weekends. You will have lots of chores to catch up on, and you can't leave your brothers and sisters with that burden, my dad said. You can start packing, and you'll leave tomorrow around midday. We'll take you there, my mom smiled. I packed immediately and went to tell Joseph the good news. The next day, we left for the city in our buggy. On the main road, I could see many fancy cars, and the drivers stared at us curiously. When we got to my aunt's house, she was already waiting for me outside. Abraham, welcome, she said. My parents didn't talk to her. They just waved and let me walk to her door. I found out later that they didn't really like her because she'd left the village, but they'd sent a messenger to her yesterday to let her know I was coming. It's nice to meet you, Aunt Miriam. Thank you for accepting me into your home, even though I'm practically a stranger, I said. I'm so happy to meet you. I've always wanted to meet my nieces and nephews. Let me show you around the house, she said. Everything was so modern and fascinating. I had a bedroom to myself, and I felt awesome. It took about 2 days to get all settled in, and I was just getting used to my new routine of waking up, eating breakfast, then watching television for 6 hours and going back to sleep, when my aunt came to me with some disturbing news. I've registered you in a nearby high school. You start tomorrow, but first we need to buy you some ordinary clothes, she said. I gasped. I have to go to school? With other kids my age who aren't Amish? I thought I could just stay here and watch TV. Your education is important. Now stop being silly. Let's go shopping, she replied. We went to a shopping mall, which was the biggest place I'd ever seen. We bought lots of stuff, and I tasted the most delicious thing in existence, pizza. The next day, my aunt drove me to school, and as we approached the huge building, which was very different from my school in the village, I felt like I just wanted to become invisible. I walked into the hallway and felt lost. I was overwhelmed and I couldn't find my first class. So I found a random bench, sat down, and buried my head in my hands. After a few minutes, I felt a light tap on my shoulder. "Hey, what's wrong? Are you okay?" a beautiful voice asked. I lifted my head and found myself staring into the most hypnotizing eyes I had ever seen. I said, speechless. "I'm Sandrina. I don't think I've ever seen you around here before," she said. "Yeah, I just moved here. Actually, I'm quite lost. I don't even know where my first class is," I replied. "Oh, let me see your schedule. Ah, we're in the same class, it seems. Come with me. I'll show you where it is," she said. "Thanks. I'm Abraham, by the way," I said. She smiled. We walked through the crowd and I felt so much safer. We got to class and she introduced me to some of her friends. My day was pretty interesting. The teachers seemed cool and my classmates weren't that bad. No one could tell that my upbringing was extremely different from theirs. That was comforting in a way because I wouldn't end up feeling like an outsider. When I got to my aunt's house later, I was super excited about going back to school the next day. "How was your first day?" my aunt asked. "It was awesome. Well, it was scary at first, but I think I fit right in. But I think I want a cell phone so they don't think I'm a loser," I said. "Well, how about getting a part-time job so you can buy your own stuff?" she replied. That week was wonderful because Sandrina made a great effort to be my friend. She invited me wherever she was going with her friends. They didn't laugh at me when I seemed to not get all the pop culture references. In fact, they probably thought I was joking. On Friday afternoon, Sandrina invited me over to her house for a movie night with her friends. She said she'd meet me at home and we'd go there together. I gave her the directions to my aunt's house and later she picked me up in a really expensive-looking car. "Whoa, I didn't even know that you could drive. Wow," I said. Yeah, I can. My dad bought me this car as soon as I got my license," she smiled. When we got to her house, I was shocked. It was a mansion. I had never seen anything like it. I was convinced that everyone from my village could fit in there. She was rich. I wondered how she'd feel about me if she knew how I really lived. Would she look down on me because my family and I lived a very simple life? I suddenly felt so small. When I went back to the village that weekend, I had so many stories to tell my friends and siblings. I couldn't wait to get back to my aunt's house for the new exciting week of life outside my village. The next week, my aunt helped me to find a job at a local pizzeria. I was already fascinated by pizza, so I really enjoyed working there. Sandrina and I began to spend more time alone with each other too. I spent a lot of time at her house, and it was just like being in a hotel. She taught me lots of new things, which I pretended to know already. We went to Chinese, Italian, and Indian restaurants, and I learned about many new exciting flavors. She paid most of the time because she had more money. One afternoon, while we were taking a stroll, she said, "Can you tell that I like you more than I like other guys?" What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean, I really like you, in like a romantic sort of way," she said. I told her that I felt the same way about her, and I asked her if she'd like to be my girlfriend. She said yes. We continued going on dates, but I had to create elaborate lies about why I'd never be able to go out with her on the weekends. After working for a few months, I finally had enough money to buy a cell phone and a new MacBook. I had so much fun learning how to use them. My relationship with Sandrina continued to grow too. We were totally in love and decided that after leaving high school, we'd go to the same college so that we could be together. I wasn't so sure about this though, but I just pretended to be sure so that she wouldn't be suspicious. How would I even afford college? I wasn't rich like she was. Then, things took an awkward turn. We weren't allowed to have any electronic devices in my village, so when I went back, I usually left my phone and MacBook at my aunt's house. One weekend, I decided to take my phone because I really wanted to talk to Sandrina. But when I got to the village, my dad seemed to be in a bad mood, and he started giving me a long list of chores I had to complete before the end of the day. I hid my phone in my pocket and got straight to work. I was somewhere on the farm harvesting some corn when I felt a huge whack on the back of my head. "Thief!" I heard a voice scream. I turned around and there was Sandrina, staring at me like she'd just seen a ghost. "Oh my God, I didn't know it was you. What are you doing here, on an Amish settlement? Why are you wearing these clothes? I thought someone had stolen your phone because you weren't replying to any of my messages. I used your MacBook to track your phone and it led me here. What are you doing here?" she said. I'm so sorry, Sandrina, I sighed. Why are you sorry? For not replying to my messages? Or for disappearing to the middle of nowhere? She asked. Suddenly, I heard a rough, harsh voice. What is she doing here? In these clothes? They are inappropriate. What are you doing in the cornfield alone with a woman? It was my dad. Gosh, this just keeps getting better, I thought. Come with me, I said to Sandrina and took her hand, completely ignoring my dad. I led her to my favorite spot near a little lake. I explained the truth to her, that I was raised in an Amish village and this was where I really lived. Aw, so that's why you disappeared on weekends. It makes so much more sense now, she said. And I was relieved that she wasn't upset. I'm sure you don't want to be with me anymore now that you know the truth, I sighed. No, I love you. I don't care that you're from here. I just wish you had been honest with me from the beginning. I wouldn't have judged you, she replied. I walked her to the entrance of the village where her car was parked. Some children were staring at it curiously. See you next week, Abraham, she said, and we kissed goodbye. When I turned around to walk back in, I saw my entire family staring at me. My mom and dad stared with their jaws dropped to the ground. Did you just kiss that girl? What is your problem? My dad asked. She's my girlfriend. We're in love, I said. No, you are not allowed to marry an outsider. You've allowed the outside world to corrupt you, and I won't have it. You won't be going back to your aunt's house ever, and you will never see that girl again, my dad shouted while my mom started crying. I was so angry that I surprised myself. How dare they dictate to me what I should or shouldn't do with my life? It was my life. I went straight to my room, packed a bag, and walked out of the house. Get back here. You haven't finished your work, my dad said. You can finish it yourself. I'm done with all of you, I replied. I walked away from the village and never turned back. I walked for almost an hour to my aunt's house where I told her everything that happened to me. After that, it wasn't very easy. My parents tried to fight to get me back, but I refused to return. Eventually, they just left me alone. It was clear that they would never accept Sandrina, but I wanted to be with her more than I wanted anything else in the world. I decided not to move back to the village, ever, and to pursue my dream of building a life with my perfect girlfriend. Right now, we go to the same college. My aunt helped me to get a loan so that I could finish my undergraduate degree. Sandrina and I are planning to get married as soon as we graduate. I'm so happy that she found me that day I was so lonely in the hallway. She totally changed my life.
I lived in a mean neighborhood on the outskirts of a town with my parents and my elder sister Trinity. Both my parents were very smart. They were college professors after all. But my sister was smarter than them both combined. She was the brains of the family, while I was the exact opposite. I was more of a potato. Charity, your sister has the greatest IQ in the world, my dad told me one day, indicating how proud he was of her. But my parents were keeping it a secret because if the government or anyone else found that out by chance, they would take her away and make her a lab rat. But before we move on, like this video, hit that subscribe button, and activate the notification bell, and you'll become the smartest person in the world. Trust me, it really works. We have to keep this secret inside our family, he told me, and I promised I would never tell another soul. I deeply admired my sister for her abilities. She was my role model, especially because she could solve any problem or riddle in seconds, while I, as I already mentioned, was a total potato in maths and all things related to logic. She was also like a superhero to me when I was little, as she could fix any toy or gadgets like it was child's play. However, Trinity slowly stopped being the superhero I admired, and as we grew up, she started turning into a supervillain. It is important to mention that she didn't take the path of becoming a supervillain on her own. Like every other supervillain, the outside world had a great role in making Trinity one. In her case, the neighborhood we lived in was the #1 reason. Our neighbors were very mean to our family for no particular reason. They would pull all childish acts like throwing their trash at our door, or go above and beyond and pluck all the flowers from the garden on our front lawn. My parents suspected they were just jealous of our family, since we were all blessed with brains. Well, except me. This situation was worse when it came to including us in any community celebrations or fests. We were always left out and uninvited. It made everyone in my family feel bad, especially Trinity, because it was then when she started acting up and using her super brain. She used her super smarts to mess with people who were mean to us. Sometimes she would cut off the electricity of their house, and it was funny to watch them spend their night in darkness. Once, she hacked into all the electronics of one of our neighbors to scare them. She was controlling the electronics from her computer, making them start and run unusually while I was enjoying the show from our window. I laughed so hard when they ran out of their house screaming, "Ghost! There's a ghost in our house!" Coming to those crazy neighborhood events, which we were always uninvited to, something crazier was sure to happen. One time in the middle of one event, some random sound system speaker abruptly started playing loud, irritating music, because of which the event was ruined. Another time, she messed with the food, causing everyone to run to their homes because they had to make that trip to the bathroom. It was the same with our bullies, and considering the fact that we were the nerdy bunch, we had a lot of them. So the bullies would obviously mess with us, and a couple of days later, they would start getting the taste of revenge, like finding a rotten apple in their lockers or not getting access to their lockers at all. But no matter how they treated us, it was evil to mess with them like that, so I discouraged Trinity from doing such things one day. "Charity, you're so naive. It's not like they don't deserve everything that's coming to them. They messed with us first," she replied, as she was not the one to listen. At that time, I ignored all the things she did because they were all petty pranks and were not life-threatening in any way. However, it didn't take long for things to take a different turn because the worst thing that could have happened actually happened. Trinity's boyfriend broke up with her, breaking her heart into pieces. Apparently, he had cheated on her with someone from the beginning of the relationship. She was devastated after that, especially because he fooled her so easily. For a few days, she didn't stop crying a river and completely shut herself in the room. She didn't eat or sleep properly, which got me worried. But after a few days, she finally decided to come out of her room. And when she did, she had become the mother of all evil, literally. I felt like I was looking at Medusa or someone when she claimed, "I'm going to bring such destruction upon this earth that it is going to stand still," and then left. My parents ignored her and laughed it off. "It's just a phase. She will get over it soon," my mom said, and they got to do their own things. However, they were unknown to how Trinity had been using her IQ to mess with the bullies and neighbors who troubled us. I, on the other hand, knew that my sister meant every word she said and that she was not one to joke. If she said she's going to bring destruction, she's very much capable of doing it. I have to stop her. I made up my mind. Trinity then transferred huge writing boards that our parents used to work on from the basement to her room. Then she started doing her calculations to destroy the Earth's mechanisms. I would occasionally sneak into her room while she was out or resting to mess up her calculations. I had to do whatever I could from my place, you see. Sometimes I completely erased a part of her calculations on the board, and sometimes I would either increase or decrease the numbers and change the signs she had used. Just like that, one day I went to her room and quickly changed a few numbers from the calculation she was working on. After that, I ran out of the room in a flash before Trinity came back. Sometime after that, I thought I heard screams coming out of Trinity's room. That made me think I had succeeded in my mission. Yay! Finally, I was able to spoil my sister's plan, I said to myself and did a little victory dance. Then I went back to her room to console her, but when I got there, I was shocked as the scene there was completely different. "My dear sister, it's time to celebrate," she said and hugged me. She told me that miraculously her calculations were coming together and finally making sense. "I'm one step closer," she added, being very excited. "It's not a miracle, sis. It's just my bad luck acting up," I gasped under my breath, making sure Trinity doesn't hear. I was also deeply saddened by it because I didn't want to help her destroy the world, but the exact opposite. However, there was no use in being sad about what had happened. Still, I did get a lesson out of it and figured I had to look for some other way to change my sister's mind. For that, I brainstormed for a moment, and then my mind went to the news I had watched just the other day about the hungry and the homeless. I can show her how she can do some good in the world with her gift instead of bringing destruction. I thought, and without further ado, I dragged her out of her room and forced her into my car. "Where are we going?" She was screaming at me most of the time, but I kept my silence along the way so that she would have an overwhelming feeling when we finally reached our destination. When we finally reached there, though, I just figured out I expect too much. Trinity didn't even flinch seeing all those hungry and homeless people, while I couldn't even contain my tears. "With a brain like yours, you can help them all in no time," I said, wiping my tears. I guess it's safe to say that plan too backfired on me because what she said next was just unbelievable. "I'm doing them a favor by destroying the earth, sis. If there's no world, there won't be any hungry and homeless." She replied in the most unemotional way ever. Epic failure. The plan was a big fail, so I had to think of something else. I couldn't just give up. "What can I do?" I said to myself, trying to come up with a solid idea and be the smart one in the family for once. Then I decided that since showing her the sad part of the world didn't work, I should try to show her that beautiful part of the world instead. For that, I took Trinity for a stroll in the park. I showed her many happy families having a picnic there with the children having fun on their own. I showed her all the cute pets walking and playing. The world is theirs too, by all means. But again, like the last time, Trinity had something unbelievable to say. "Look, Charity, I don't even care the tiniest bit about other families and pets. I only care about ours, and I'm going to find us all safety before I destroy this filthy place," she said, which made me so disappointed and worried. I was only failing at my attempts of changing her mind, which made me want to give up, but I decided to give it my all and try again one last time. It gave me the motivation to first go to the roots of how my sister decided to become the destructive monster. It all started with the boyfriend breaking her heart, I thought. So if she gets a new one somehow, she might change her mind. It was the best idea I had since I started on my own little mission. But it was not an easy task, so I had to plan everything strategically. After that, I downloaded a dating app on my phone and went to my sister's room. "Trinity, I need help from you," I said. "What help? Tell me," she replied. I told her that I wanted her to select a boy for me to go on a date with from a dating app. The reason behind that was to make her responsible for my dating life so that I could make her do anything related to that later on. She agreed to help me and we swiped on, and as always, she was really picky about which guy to go with. After about an hour of looking for the date, we finally chose this guy called Owen. Surprisingly, he went to the same school as us. Naturally, I started talking to the guy we had selected. We talked about our interests and aspirations, then we went on to plan a date. While doing that, I asked him for a favor. "Could you arrange someone for my sister? I was thinking about going on a double date," I texted him. "You're in luck. I have the perfect person, and he has had a crush on your sister for a long time now," he replied. I was so happy after reading that. I jumped out of joy and excitement. I ran to Trinity instantly and asked her to go on a double date with me. Obviously, she didn't agree at first, but I was so persistent that she couldn't say no. We went on that date, and the guys took us to the movies first and then a nice dinner. We had lots of fun and such a good time after so long. After the date was over, I could tell from the look on Trinity's face that she was very happy. I began talking to her about the date, and I was so happy because she finally started talking optimistically. "Well, the world is not a bad place after all," she said, and told me that she was looking forward to spending more time with her date. I could finally take a breath of relief. Even more when Trinity went on and cleared out her board of calculations that could have led to the world's destruction. Only after that, she went on to live like normal people for at least a few days. One day, the guys called Trinity and me to invite us to a party. "It's going to be a lot of fun," Owen said, so we decided to go. They told us that the theme of the party was a circus, so everyone was supposed to dress like a clown. We took the rules very seriously and did a lot of shopping for clothes and the makeup of the clown. On the day of the party, we spent hours to get all the makeup done and went to the location Owen had provided us, all excited thinking about all the fun we were going to have. But when we reached the place we were told to be at, we were shocked. We were shocked because there was no party there. In fact, there was no one there besides us. But suddenly, a group of our school bullies and the boys came in and started taking videos of us saying things like, "Look at the clown sisters. They think they're dateable. They're total clowns." I couldn't believe that the guys we had gone on a date with were actually on the side of the bullies and were just trying to make fun of us. We were so embarrassed that we made a run from there. But when we reached home, we found out that they had already uploaded our video on the internet. There were so many mean comments on the video that made me cry. However, since Trinity was so talented, she took down the video from the internet instantly. She also hacked into the bullies' phones and removed the video permanently. But the damage had been done, and this time I was hurt more than ever. No matter how good I tried being in this world, I had always been hurt from that, and so was my sister. So obviously, after that event, the evil in my sister returned, even more motivated than ever to bring destruction. But this time, I'm not going to stop her. In fact, I'm going to help her all that I can, because now, I too am fed up with this cruel world.